Vespers service and have a good evening, all Santos. This holy evening, in the silence of the night, I'm starting the holy chain.
È $1 milione. Quanto segnate qualcuno di quei politici che poi tenete sotto mano? È $1 milione.
There are numerous views about this happening, a mass of attempts, I'd say, to explain what is going on.
La Ndrangheta è questo.
Ndrangetta is an adoration of evil.
Adorazione del male.
On 15th of August 2017, I was on the railroad station in Duisburg, and I saw everything with my own eyes. They had no documents on them, which were published in the press right the next day.
È $1 milione.
Ndrangeta, largest mafia group of Calabria or ever most widespread mystification. Repeat after me. I swear to abnegate everything which has happened to me up to 7th generation. I swear to protect dignity of my holy brothers. In 2014, in Calabria, there was an unprecedented event in the history of the Italian criminal tradition. Roman Pope Francis excommunicated members of Ndrangheta, the largest Calabrian mafia organization. Those who have chosen this evil way and became members of the mafia, they are separated from God. They are separated from the church. There are a lot of oddities in this event, which we will talk about later. However, this visit of Roman Pope to Calabria will become a starting point of our investigation. So what is known to us? On the territory of Italy, there are at least 4 major criminal organizations: the Mafia, Camorra, and Ndrangheta. It became known from the last program that there are 2 types of Camorra, Vita and Mala Vita, people who try to honor chivalric traditions, and Neapolitan street criminals. In that case, the first question that I have as a journalist is this: for what reason does the Roman Pope pay a visit to Calabria to excommunicate the members of Ndrangheta from the church? No one excommunicates Camorra from church, the bad one. Good Camorra is considered to have pious Catholics. Santa Lucia, they're like this, and other things. And the question that we have is, why Ndrangheta? What sin it has made before Pontifex that it should be excommunicated from church? So, what did they do this time? I mean, what did they do to Pontifex? Did they steal a certain crucifix in the Vatican, or what did they do? To be honest, no one can say what did they do exactly. They did nothing. Dr. Oleg Maltsev, scientist, head of Research Institute of Criminalistic Investigations. For more than 20 years, Dr. Maltsev has been investigating the history of the Italian criminal tradition and has written a number of scientific works on this topic. Well, if there is a secret organization, a criminal one, which creates problems for government, arrest them in the silent manner. But no, they have to be made heroes so that whole Italy knows about it. Look at this. They could have been quietly charged, arrested, and imprisoned. But no, it has happened in a very magnificent manner on all state levels. Everyone is applauding, and meanwhile, when you have the actual in-city conflicts in Palermo, and it's not one-time conflict, no, it has happened 3 times. Salvatore Giuliano, then there was a war in 70s, in 80s. I guess there were about 10,000 people killed overall. Salvatore Giuliani alone has 300 arrest orders and minus 80 carabiniers. He alone had killed them. Just think, one person has killed 80 carabiniers. Having said this, I know Ndrangeta, which is poor and unhappy with family ties. They were almost all excommunicated from church.
Notti d'un tempo che fu, tre cavalieri da Spagna se partirono, dall'Abruzzi a Sicilia passarono, e poi in Calabria se fermarono. 21 anni lavorarono sottoterra per fondare le regole sociali, leggi d'onori di sangue e di guerra.
The secret organization Ndrangheta. As you understand, everything secret in this world is always secret in a conventional way. So what do you know about one of the most dangerous criminal structures in Italy? It is exactly known that until 2007 almost no one spoke about this organization. And if it were not for the murder of 6 people in the German city of Duisburg, perhaps we still would not know anything about Ndrangheta. Personally, I believe that this organization had nothing to do with the events of 2007. It was simply profitable for someone to create an international resonance around this case. We came to Munich to meet a retired officer who was directly involved in the investigation of the group murder in Duisburg. I saw everything with my own eyes. They had no documents on them which were published in the press right the next day. I have my own opinion about whose profit and benefit was behind this, but these are only my speculations and let them stay with me. What is true? Opinion of people who studied Ndrangheta, the opinion of journalists, criminologists or writers. Historically, in the southern Italy, people were drawn to the family, to a certain structure. This is a centuries-old trend, and no one doubts it. Also, the residents of the southern Italy do not doubt that for many years, centuries and generations, the territory of Calabria, Apulia and Naples were controlled by Camorra. I spoke with Professor Merendoni and asked him a question 3 times from different viewpoints using the map, and he said, Camorra, yes. Taronta, Bari, Brindisi, these are 3 ports with ships coming, people, money, and all of this was controlled by Camorra. Calabria, Cosenza, and Reggio Calabria. Only Camorra. Who is Professor Merendoni? Antonio Merendoni is a recognized authority in Italy in the field of history and military science. When we speak of Professor Merendoni, I say that among people I spoke with, he knows the best what he speaks about on academic level. The first intermediate conclusion of the investigation. Representatives of academic science note the presence of only one criminal organization on the territory of Calabria, Camorra. There are no mentions about Ndrangheta. In that case, whom did the Roman Pope excommunicated from the church while in Calabria? After the Duisburg events, I began to study Ndrangheta, but it turned out that almost nothing is known about this organization. After I had retired, I found a book by Nicoletta Serenata, who had studied this line for more than 30 years. The description of Ndrangheta in the book reminds me of a medieval knightly order. Remember, the tree of knowledge is divided into 6 parts. The stem is the Capo of society. Branches are Camorra members by blood. Branches that are smaller, these are Garibaldis and fencers. Flowers are young people of honor. Leaves are traitors of our organization, which will eventually rot at the foot of the tree of knowledge. The power of Ndrangheta lies in the organizational structure based on the family blood relations of Capobastone, who is the boss of Ndrina, the main cell of the organization. Almost all are immediate relatives of Capobastone. Children, brothers and sisters, cousins and grandchildren are members of the organization. Do you think that the tree of knowledge is a new idea? No, not at all. Ndrangeta, is it a new idea? No, it is not. Formerly, multiple times there were cases and attempts to transform European chivalric religion for one's personal needs. Thus, Ndrangeta is one of the forms of subculture, an attempt to adjust European chivalric religion for personal needs. In order to understand what is Ndrangeta, we need to find an answer to the main question. What is the basic geometry of this organization? If we say that we could have looked at Palermitan Mafia on the model of a ship, where you have a captain, defensive payload, a whole hierarchy of the ship and other things, correspondingly, we perceive it as a fencing school. Their territorial unit is fencing school. If we think of street Camorra, it would correspond to defensive payload of the ship. And Ndrangeta is a university. Its origin is a university. As you remember from past programs, we have depicted that bandits in the southern Italy were trained by 3 categories of instructors: nobles, military and monks. To be sure in this, it is enough to look into a book of Marco Ferrara, Bandits, Knives and Sticks. Thus, who of these 3 categories could have created Ndrangeta by means of the subculture method and the idea of the tree of knowledge? This could have been done only by the most educated people of their time, only those who did it repeatedly on different continents under the Spanish flag: Franciscan monks and Dominicans. The second intermediate conclusion of the investigation is as follows. The ideology and symbolism of Ndrangeta is completely identical to the ideology and symbolism of Camorra. As for me, Ndrangeta is that same Camorra. These are all the same structures. It seems to me that they were all one before, and then they got split into 3 organizations. I mean, the Camorra got split into 3 parts to Ndrangeta, good and bad Camorra. And there is a huge amount of evidence which proves this point. The speciality of instructors, the approaches, the subculture is the same. As a matter of fact, Ndrangeta and good Camorra have identical subculture.
Leggi maggiori, minori e criminali, esti regoli di sangue e d'omertà, da patria figli.
This conclusion is also consistent with the results of our past investigations. As you remember, there are only 5 ways of the emergence of organized crime in Italy. Ndrangheta doesn't correspond to any of them. In fact, we are dealing not with a new group, but with the division of Camorra into 3 separate groups: Meanwhile, Ndrangheta has its own peculiarities. The ability to replicate both qualitatively and quantitatively the organizational structure in territories removed from the homeland, even outside of Europe, is one of the strong sides that characterize Ndrangheta. They position this organization in a horizontal way, meaning that it doesn't have a vertical center. But this is not true. It has a vertical structure as an organization, and its horizontal way of spreading is not more than a mechanism, because horizontal organization cannot exist for a long period of time. It is a matter of course. If there was no one single commanding center, they would already fought out each other. The highest rank of the organization is called Capobastone. To the right of him there is fencing Capo. To the left, Capo, who deals with formalities. Later, the structure of Ndrangheta introduces the scientists, who represent a commission and take collective decisions. In the case of Camorra, the highest rank is Capo Respecto. There is no commission, power is concentrated in the hands of one person. Gradually, everything starts falling into its place. But there are two very important issues which should be looked into. So Ndrangheta is no more than one of the three groups, provided that at a certain moment Camorra disintegrated into three groups. The geometry of the organization is the university, and at the roots there are the monastic orders of the Franciscans and Dominicans. In this case, who benefits from hysteria around this organization? Excommunication from the church, a halo of the mysterious and perhaps the most dangerous organization in the world. Every message is a terror. Something like, could this be true indeed? No way, this can't be true in 21st century on the territory of European country. Well, what about 2,000 people getting killed in Palermo during in-city fights? But that is fine, it doesn't surprise people. But when it gets to existence of a certain family, which can theoretically get spread, it is scary for people. No one denies the existence of Ndrangheta as an organization. Subject is completely different. It is about constant exaggeration of its achievements in the field of organized crimes. It seems that it is unconquerable, that it is eternal, and I, as a scientist and financier, have thoughts that if an organization is eternal, then the financial resources to fight this organization also has to be constantly given. You know what I mean? It should never stop. And someone will be trying to justify his status, his usefulness, what is adored by Italians, by means of a certain mythical organization whom they heroically fight against. All the secret in this world is always a conventional secret. Any mysticism ends right in the point where applied science starts. The motives of people are always simple. It's time to deal with the last and perhaps the most important issue, one way or another, but Ndrangheta has to have certain methods of achieving results in its own martial arts system. Today we do not see any historical weaponry systems in southern Italy, in Calabria and Puglia. Look, the center of everything is Naples. Naples spreads the culture to Brindisi, like everywhere. Correspondingly, the other doors of culture are ports. There are people who bring another culture from different places. That's absolutely true. But it was not always the case. This means that we need to conduct forensic analysis together with the Professor Merendoni and Dr. Maltsev. This is the only way we can answer the question, which martial arts systems were originally on the territory of Calabria and Puglia. Then Calabria and Puglia, this territory generally is Greek, and culture predominantly came from Naples. It turns out that in the territory of Calabria, which is supposedly the headquarters of Ndrangeta, it must have a system of Neapolitan fencing from the point of view of history. Nevertheless, today this knowledge is lost. So what do we have in here? First, we have Neapolitan fencing, which had disappeared somewhere, no one knows where. Under the leadership of Dr. Maltsev, at the Institute of Criminologistic Studies, the system of Neapolitan fencing was restored in its fullest. However, no one knows this fencing system in modern Naples. Camorra originated first in Taranto, then in Bari, then it came to Brindisi. Common ways of people and sailors, as you understand, are the best ones, though the best ways were in places with an influence of people. Residents of the southern part of Italy for many centuries adopted the methods of fencing of sailors and pirates who went through many wars in combats and therefore were not accidentally considered extremely effective. Following Naples, there is a zone of Castello di Mara. There they used massetta, a small massetta for sailors. For instance, you may have seen the pirates. They used to use it to capture something. The first thing that was used in the south was massetta, a small stick which is also called caviglia. Such a stick was used by those who came from the sea. By the way, such a stick has remained in the martial arts traditions of Spain, in particular on the Canary Islands, where the monks of the order of Franciscans also actively worked and introduced the subculture. However, in today's Italy, we won't find this technique. Sailors used to work in the following manner. In the left hand they had caviglia, in the other hand there was a punzon. That knife was used to disbark tree branches. First they used to deliver a strike with a club, and then they'd use a knife or a pike. Traditional methods of handling the weapon on those territories that are described by professors, they are not there either. We don't see them. No schools, nothing. What we see is a long stick and some type of a knife. Sailors used to employ this technique. Other land inhabitants used another one. In Naples, in Caserta, there was a different method. In Palermo, another one. A unique method of using two blades. On the left a long one, on the right a short one. In all methods and techniques, they always use two of them. Please note that you will not find this technique either today in the south of Italy. Remember the words of the member of Camorra from the previous program. Speak about the knife, then in our tradition you cannot have two blades in each hand. We work with a single weapon. Besides, we use folding knives. As you can see, modern members of Camorra know little about their true traditions, which used back in times a stick and a pick at a time, a stick and a stick, long and short blade at a time. In Naples there were two. In Naples there were two malavitas, Camorra, which is bad, criminal malavita, and guappo, which is considered a good malavita. It was a showy style. Stick, knife, everything had to be fancy. As Professor Merendoni says, in Naples there was one more Malavita, Guapa. No one knows where it is either, or people don't know what it is in general. They can't explain it. It is considered to be noble and good one. According to historical hypotheses, which are put forward by academicians, allegedly it came from noble part of Palermo, who came to Naples, as it became the capital in those times. After some time spent there, when things collapsed, they went back to Palermo. We continue with a block of conclusions. The investigation shows that Ndrangheta is one of the three fragments of Camorra. As the knightly system, Ndrangheta has a mechanism of horizontal distribution and university monastic roots. Moreover, all the methods of fencing which we see today on the right side of the Sicily, in Calabria and Puglia, arose in the 20th century. They are not supported by documents and treatises on fencing, and therefore are not traditional. They are fictitious. Today's south of Italy has a strange, non-traditional identity. A knife and a long stick, which Professor Merendoni calls a shepherd's stick. How then did modern fencing schools appear in Italy? Very simple. A man who established his own fencing school understands that the school doesn't have roots. So what is left for him? He addresses representatives of the academic science. This method, by the way, is not a new one. Fuggers, Rothschilds, and many others did so in their times. The one who undertakes to justify the antiquity of the school starts working with the ancient treatises and tries to prove the antiquity of his school. Why does this sometimes work? Well, because no one reads these treatises. In fact, today's masters took non-Italian martial arts and adapted them to the south of Italy. As a result, it turned out to be a bunch of French, Japanese, and other Eastern martial arts. As you see, all the secret in this world is always a conventional secret. In the following programs of the Sicilian documentary episodes, we will show the results of the research of the Institute of Memory, Research Institute of Criminalistic Studies, all that we managed to find out about traditional way of the training program and the methods of teaching blade work and stick work in these territories. We are going to show the genuine Italian tradition that have evolved over the centuries in Palermo, Naples, on the right side of Sicily, in Calabria and Puglia. To be continued.